All right, hey guys, welcome back. This is Steve with LRM. Today I want to talk about the brakes. Considering it started in August for, DOT being out full force, checking the brakes, systems, your ABS, as well as some major components. So we're going to talk about a few of those things. It might be a little late, but it never hurts to have a good idea what you need to be looking for when you do get pulled over by DOT. So the first thing you ever want to start out with, let's fire up the truck, get the air pressure up to 120, turn off the truck, and then let it sit. What we're doing is we're gonna see how much air you lose during a certain amount of time. The next step is, if you haven't lost any air, you're gonna release the brakes, and then step on the brake pedal. And what we're doing is we're looking for a leak. When you step on the brake pedal, you're gonna step on the pedal and you're gonna watch the gauges drop. They're gonna drop a little and they should hold. If they're holding, then there's a good chance that you don't have a leak. But if you see one of the needles slowly dropping, then now that you have indicated that you have a leak on the truck somewhere. You would need to definitely look out right away, because if the DOT sees it leaking down, you're gonna get hit with a DOT violation. The next thing you would wanna do is start looking at some of the major components. That's gonna be your brake chambers, your slack adjusters, the air lines going from the valve to the brake chamber, as well as your brake shoe components and the brake shoe itself. What I mean components is pretty much like the springs. Make sure they're still connected to your brake shoes, or you don't see them hanging down as well. And when you're looking in there, we want to look at the drums. Make sure there's no deep grooves that maybe at one point got too low and revved into the rivets of a brake shoe. And then the wear indicator on the brake shoe itself. If you don't see that wear indicator, it's a good chance you might as well replace the brake shoe, because DOT is definitely going to keep his eye out for that and write you that ticket. So what I want to do is, let's show some components on the truck that I have behind me. This is a Freightliner Cascadia. I want to point out a few things like the brake chamber, the air lines, the slack adjuster, and the brake shoe. All right, as well as you need to start up your pressure, hold the brake pedal down, and see if you're losing anything. And then the other thing is, last but least, what I would do is when you release the pressure, you're going to do a few things. Pump down the brakes. You want to make sure that the buzzer comes on indicating that you have low air pressure. So it could be a visual like a red light, or a note saying on the dash low air pressure, as well as maybe an audible noise. And then the other thing is you want to deplete it down to the point where the tractor protection valve kicks in. So you remember, you're going to have two spots, right? One for the trailer and one for the tractor. So you want to keep on pumping until you get around 40 or 50. And then the trailer might and then the tractor, when you get closer to anywhere between 10 and 20 PSI, then the tractor one should pop out as well. So what we want to do is, let me show you a few things on this truck right behind us with our brake components. All right guys, so I'm here at this truck. I went to push my tool on the brake pedal, and sure enough, on this particular truck, I do have a leak at my brake chamber. So if you guys don't have a tool, piece of wood, or if you have a team driver, have that guy sit in the driver's seat and step on the pedal. And then as you can hear an air leak coming from my brake chamber right here on the left front axle. Needless to say, this will be an easy job, but this is how you can find leaks. And you can hear it. All I gotta do really is, I found out that this line is loose. So I'm gonna end up just tightening this line back up. What I'm doing now is we found an air leak on this particular truck. So what I'll do is I'll tighten up the line, start up the truck again, and then recheck it. So right now I'm gonna pull the tool and then tighten it up and see if we've cleared the problem. And then I wanna talk about a few other components, what we're doing when we're pushing in the pedal as well. And that we're gonna pay attention more towards the slack adjuster and the push rod travel on the brake chamber. All right guys, so what I did was I tightened up on the line like I said. I have the truck running. I just wanna show you guys what I was using to prop the pedal, for the brake pedal. So this is actually a hood propper. You don't have to buy one. You can get one. It just makes life easier, because you can extend it, put your foot down, and then move it to the seat, and it'll hold in place. And I just release it when I'm done. If you don't have one, a block of wood or a friendly friend that you find, or if you want to make a friend, have someone step on the pedal for you. So right now I'm letting the truck build up to 120 PSI. We're going to release the brakes again, and then I'm going to put the prop and see if the repair for the air leak has dissipated. All right guys, so I put my tool in place of the brake pedal, and right now, as I can hear, there are no air leaks, which is good. So I'm happy that we actually found a truck that actually had an issue, which I didn't know about until we just did what we're doing. We found it, I fixed it with a crescent wrench. I tightened up the line, stepped on the pedal. We have no more air leaks, which is good news. I do want to go back to the whole point of starting from the beginning of putting air in the system and using the tool to apply the brakes. And there's a whole reason for it. So I want you to do is come and follow me to the front axle, and I'll show you why. What we're doing is we want them to apply pressure towards the slack adjuster, which is by the brake chamber. And what we're doing is, when I do that, I want to see how far it traveled. Now, I know you guys are driving the trucks, you may not even have a tape measure. If you do, you can always mark it and then see how far it travels. All right, depending on what brake chamber you have, 30, 30, 30, 36, a 24 or 20, any of those, there's always ways to look up how far the measurements should be out. Sometimes it could be 1.5 inches, 1.25 inches, 2 inches, depending on your brake chamber. But in a quick ninny, if you really want to find out, is you step on the brakes and it should be going at least to a 90. So when your slack adjusters are in like this, when you release and you step, we should be like this at a 90-degree angle. And that will tell us one or two things and real fast if the slack adjuster is out of adjustment. Now, if it is, here's the thing. We have to have automatic slack adjusters on the truck. That means that it should automatically adjust every time you step on the brakes to keep it, as you wear on your brake pads, keep making that adjustment. That being said, that means that particular axle that shows like it's more like past 90-degree angle, the slack adjuster is going to be the issue and you're going to have to end up replacing it. But in this case, if it's good, what you want to do is make sure it's at 90, and then you want to check the air line, make sure it's not kinked or rubbing against anything, as well as, again, air leaks. I'll show some more proper pictures over here in a minute. As well as we're gonna look at the brake shoe. You don't want anything cracking. You don't want it separating from the metal and the material from the pad. Any of those indications is gonna be a violation. And then the last thing is the wear item. Once the wear bar goes down and it's practically flush with the drum, then the brake shoes, I would highly recommend replacing. So I'm gonna show you some pictures real quick so you guys see what I'm talking about. So right here, this is our brake chamber, and this is our air line going to the brake chamber. So we want to see how everything's nice and secure for the ABS. That's what we want. We don't want this rubbing here. We don't want it rubbing against the tire or the shock. No cracking. If everything looks good, then you move forward. As well as here, you want to check out the condition. No rust, any big holes, anything that's indicating that's going to be loose or about to puncture through, then it needs to be replaced. This is the trowel. This is the part that I was talking about. So when it comes out and it shows a 90-degree from here to this, that means this brake shoe, it should be in great adjustment. You also want to make sure all your pins are here, right? If you're missing this particular pin, this allows the plunger to move up and down so it can make the adjustment every time you step on the brake. If it's missing, it's not going to be adjusting. All right, as well as you want to make sure your S-cam tube, there's no cracks, no missing bolts here or here. Everything looks good. You want to grab it and try to pull it. If it doesn't move, that looks good. Do the same thing. You want to make sure everything's nice and tight, not loose. And make sure everything looks greased up. Like you can see grease here, good amount of grease is there, so it's probably getting greased. And then here's your brake shoe right here. What you want to look there is for any cracks along the side. Any crack you have, you need to replace. And here's the metal and the brake lining. I did do a video about the whole piggy, brake chambers. So you can always take a look at to see what styles are normally with Freightliners. All right, guys, so now we're in the truck. And what I would do next is your air gauges. I want to get them down to 80 PSI. Once they get down to 80, then what you want to do is watch from 80 to 100. You want to see how fast it builds up air. It should take maybe about 40 seconds is what you want to look at. If you're sitting here for quite a few minutes, then you have a problem. The air compressor is not building up correctly. You may have a blockage in the airline. The air dryer could be an issue, or the air tank might be filled with water. So that's a concern that I would definitely look at. I'm already at 100 PSI. So this here is a good indication that the air compressor and the air system is building up correctly. So the next thing I want to do is we're going to do a leak down test. And what I mean by that is, what we're going to do is we're going to get this truck up to 120 PSI. So I'm going to rev it up a little bit more. And by doing that is we want to hear the purge valve pop off. So when it gets to 120, you should hear psh, and that's telling you that the unloader valve has sent a signal and it dumps the air out of the air dryer, saying that you're full. All right. Now, if you're still sitting on the pedal and you hear psh, and then another one, It could be a governor, or it could be the signal line going from the governor to the unloader valve, which is your air compressor. It may have a hole in it, where I occasionally find that problem, because it shouldn't just be popping off air every time. It should always get to 120 and then stop. And then once you get below 100 PSI, then everything should kick back on. There it is. So I'm gonna turn off the truck. I'm gonna go ahead and push in my first valve, which is the one for the truck, the yellow one. Once you release the pressure there, and you may have, depending on what truck you have, but a Freightliner, you have to have the key in the on position. Just what we wanna do is we wanna watch the air pressure. What you're gonna do is you're gonna step on the pedal, you're gonna lose a little bit of pressure, and then it should stop. Once it stops, what you wanna do is at least, I say a minute, hold it for a minute. If you don't see any movement, then you know you don't have a leak in the system, and that's a good thing, and that's what we want. The next step I want to do is I'm going to push in both valves, the trailer and the tractor, and I'm going to pump the brake pedal. And what we want to do is we want to see the trailer valve pop out first, and then the very last one will be your tractor valve, right? And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to start the truck back up, right? Because we want to see the light and then hopefully an audible noise indicating that we are low on air pressure. All right. So I'm gonna push in the trailer right now. You are gonna hear air leaking in the back, especially if you're not hooked up to a trailer, but if you don't, just start pumping the brakes. All right, so we're already getting air. Ooh, there you go, perfect. We're at 60. Now the one for the tractor, we should get almost down to 20 PSI or a little less, not at 0, but it should be popping out. And this is what you wanna see. You wanna hear the audible noise, which is the buzzing sound, and then some sort of indicator. It could be a little light on the dash, or in this case it says brake air supply pressure low. So as long as you have those indicating, that means your system's working. We had this pop out right around 60 PSI, this popped out right at 20 PSI. I say the truck is good. Now, if this doesn't pop out and you get to 0, then you have a problem with your brake valve here, and this is where you need to replace it. If this doesn't pop out, then it's going to be your tractor protection valve, which is in the back of the cab. All right, in this case, everything looks good on this truck. Hey guys, just want to recap one more time. So we were talking about the brake system, some of the maintenance, as well as some of the DOT violations. So let's start out with the first one, right? We're going to air up the truck. Let's look for an air leak. By doing an air leak, you're going to get it up to 120, release the brake for the tractor, and then step on the pedal. What we want to do is hold it there and make sure that the gauge doesn't move. Now, again, for stepping on the brakes, if you do not have someone to do it for you, you can use a piece of wood or a hood propping tool or a good frame. Once you figure that out and it's not leaking down, the next thing I would do is push in both valves. What you're gonna do is you wanna see if the audible and a visual noise comes on when you start losing air. The first thing it should pop should be your trailer valve, and then shortly after, your tractor valve. All right, then the last thing I would do is the rate of flow for your air compressor. Get that bad boy at 80 PSI and just watch it grow. You don't have to step on the pedal. I would give it 40 seconds. If you don't reach 100 PSI within that 40 seconds, then you have a problem, and you wanna look for a restriction, air leak, or a malfunction, or even your air tank may be filled with water. But I would definitely be looking in those areas to find the reason why my air is not building up proper pressure. Next thing is components, right? Brake shoes, they can't be cracked, can't be separated, and you also want to make sure you have a proper amount of thickness, all right? Then the next thing would be anything that's broken, cracked, or missing, or loose. So slack adjuster, SKM, as well as your brake chamber. And then the other thing is make sure your brake chambers match on that same axle. You can't put a 30-30 long on one side and have a 30-30 standard. They are not in compliance. They have to equally be the same on the left as well as the right. And then also make sure you have proper brake adjustment. And you guys remember, do not adjust the brakes, because if you have to, there's a good chance that your slack adjuster is the cause of the problem. That's everything that I can pretty much think of when it comes to safety and any concerns for brake and the brake system. If you guys like what you saw today, please pound that like button. If you have any questions or any concerns of what you saw in this video, guys, leave a comment at the bottom. If you want some more content coming your way to try to help you save money or try to catch any future issues, please subscribe. I'll see you guys around.